How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you again. I wanted to answer some of the questions that were posted lately, and I'm going to do my best to try to do this on a regular basis. I am currently working through doing all of the video recordings for the enterprise workbook that I released back in January. I'm currently going through all the video solutions. So there's now that we're getting into the real meat and taters of the topics, there will be which will all be available if you go through Patreon. All the technical videos, they'll be available through Patreon. Hosted on YouTube, available through Patreon. So working through that, I'm hoping to have that done in as quickly as I can. I'm thinking it's probably going to take me about a month and a half, 2 months, or probably, if I had to guess, sometime in August I might be done fully recording because there's still a lot to go over. But I'm trying to get through it as quickly as I can, but at the same point in time, I'm also trying to do quality over quantity. So I want it to be valuable information for you guys. So that's what I'm going to be working on. And so as I go through some of these comments here, all good stuff for clarity's sake. I wanted to provide, it got me thinking. So let me answer the first couple. So this comment is in regards to a gentleman that I met at Cisco Live that I've made, keeping their anonymity anonymous, so that, I don't call people out. But yeah, basically where this comes from is the person didn't believe that they should have to put a lot of time and effort into building labs. The lab should already be built for them, and they should be able to hyper focus in a particular area. And I've said, well, when you're learning something for the first time, yes, I see where that makes sense because I feel the same way. Once I get through the bulk of the training that I want to get through, then I plan on doing a CCNA level course where I do just that, where I have a bunch of labs that I build in Packet Tracer that anybody that's starting out in networking, Network Plus, CCNA level type stuff, CCST, Cisco Certified Support Tech, that level of training, it'll be free on YouTube, labs will be downloadable with the intention of trying to get people interested in networking and not be fascinated with the whole automation, AI thing, which is all of the whiz-bang wow stuff that happens after you understand the core competencies. So you really have to have your fundamentals down before anybody starts jumping into automation or AI to do the job for them. I jokingly was there was a guy at Live, and he and I were joking about ChatGPT generating BGP configuration, and I was like, good God, I spent a long time learning BGP, and I still don't think I fully know it as well as I wish I did. But that's why it's always a ongoing process. So with that being said, that's where this comment basically comes from. And I completely agree with you. You really kind of lose out in the big picture if you're too focused on basic operation. You really need to understand the whole thing for you to be good at your job. Thanks, Rob. Your content is top notch. You're one of the few ones that know how to effectively explain concepts and also give real world scenarios. Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. And that's why I continue to do what I do. And with one of the previous videos, you mentioned that you want to size down topology for an RC lab, and you were going to remove disaster recovery site from the topology. Is there any way you can keep it? I think it would be interesting to test things related to disaster recovery. So actually, I read your comment yesterday, shortly after talking about that in the tech support video, and I was actually going on a walk after that. It's summertime, I'm trying to enjoy the weather and not be in front of the computer as much, which is why I think it's going to take me longer to record the content that I want to do, because to be completely honest with you, I'd rather be out at the pond fishing, catching bluegill and bass, hanging out with the kids, or enjoying the weather than being inside. I mean, I have to be inside anyway, Monday through Friday from 9 to 6 because of my job or traveling and stuff like that. So the least amount of time, and where I live in the upper Midwest in Wisconsin, we only get a short window for warm weather. So while it's nice out, I mean, it's 80 out right now, and my calendar is pretty empty for the rest of the day. So I do have some stuff going on, but I still want to get stuff done. Try to get the work done, but enjoy the weather as much as I possibly can. Anyway, as I was on the walk, I was thinking about that, where I've got the majority, I'd say probably more than half of um, the Encore and Anarsi workbook completed. So I was thinking about it, and because I've had quite a few people make your same comment, what I'm probably going to do is I will size it down slightly. I won't have I'll figure out exactly how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to size it down slightly so it's a little easier to work with. Um, I don't know if I'll be able to get it small enough to where it'll be supported in CML, but maybe inside of Eve 2025 30 devices, something like that, that you could run with I did just get CML 2.7, so I do have that ultra light iOS or IOU router. I haven't tested it out yet, but that is something I am going to eventually get to work to see if that doesn't make things easier to work with. We will see exactly how that plays out, but right now it'll be the iOS V router running 15.6 code, so that's where I'm going to go with that. So what I think I'm going to do is, since I've been talking about it now for a little while, and I like to deliver on what the things that I say that I'm going to do. Um, I think I will do what you said, keep the disaster recovery section in place and have those things operational so that they're there if they need to be. Um, Still go through the level of detail I want to, do the troubleshooting, but I need to make it small enough to where it doesn't wig out on me. So, for example, when I go through the verification steps, there's tasks configured, and I'm going to verify, like DHCP. Half the time when I would go to verify DHCP, it would freak out on me, and the box would crash. So, I'm thinking about deploying a EVNG VM, the community version inside of ESXi, get 20-25 devices maybe. Try to keep it as small as I can, but still drive the point home and test those things out, make sure that they're working, rebuild the lab where I need to rebuild the lab, do some updates to it so that I can get that done and have that, get that all figured out, configure, troubleshooting section knocked out, all that type of stuff in a relatively acceptable amount of time, probably by the end of summer. That's when I would like to do that, and go from there. And have the videos recorded for that. That would be a 100% on Patreon type deal. If you had the workbook for it, which will be put on Patreon as well. And that's another thing. For every workbook that I create, that'll be a separate workbook option. So if you if you go to my Patreon and you look at, let's see here, let me pull this up real quick. I think it might be here. Yeah, if I go here, because I'm not logged in, what'll end up happening is there will be a dedicated, you obviously see the All Access Pass, and you see the Topology config files coaching sessions for $10 a month. There will be a workbook here. I'm going to update the term or the title to this one to be Enterprise Workbook, and there will be, for every workbook that I create, there will be a different option for that workbook. But you'll also be able to get the workbooks via the All Access Pass and everything. So if you get the All Access Pass, you'll be able to get everything that's in the config files, topology, and coaching sessions will also be available under here, as well as the workbooks. So I'm thinking eventually workbooks and topology config files, coaching sessions will eventually just go away. That's what I'm thinking is probably going to go to. But I also need to update this where cancel your membership as soon as you get it, because it's going to be recurring $50 a month. I don't know if there's a way to do a one-time payment. Maybe there is some via some other way, but I'll have to figure that out. But that's essentially where I want to go with it. So to answer your question, yeah, I probably will. I need to size it down a little bit to make it easier to work with. and go from there. And then the DR piece, I don't know exactly how I'm going to fit all this in. Well, there's some things I have to figure out, and then once I have them figured out, I'll go through those things and get the workbook written. So I'm going to try to go through these answers as quickly as I can. Some of them are going to take a little longer to answer than others, but most memorable Nic Russo content you studied. May he rest in peace. Yeah, he was somebody I considered a friend. So I don't know the circumstances around his passing, other than the fact that I found out when I was still in Vegas. There was a LinkedIn notification that Nick had passed, and I didn't believe it at first, so I Googled it. Sure enough, I found the obituary notice, and as time has gone on, more and more information on the obituary has been put out. They even did a live stream of his services, so I was unable to view that due to a work commitment, and I was actually kind of irritated. I tried to get the meeting changed because I wanted to view the service, but I wasn't able to do that. But his book was awesome. Like, I still reference his service provider comprehensive guide a lot. There's a lot of really, really good information in there. So if you're like studying for service provider version 5, that would be the first place I would stop would be his book, because he went into extreme levels of detail on that. So it was to the point where I would get lost, and I consider myself pretty well versed in that stuff. So yeah, it's his book for sure. He did spend a lot of time on the automation piece and stuff like that, and did a lot on Pluralsight for that. And the content was really, really good. I would never knock his level of detail or effort of the content that he put out. He was, in my opinion, even better than training than I am in some respects. So, nothing but respect for him in that respect. So it's he definitely will be missed for sure. What is your opinion on Cisco adding a lot of 5G content to the SP track? Well, it's the way of the future, really, when you think about it. So there are a lot of companies. If you talk about wireless backups, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be putting a 5G AP or a 5G SIM card or modem, whatever it might be, cradle point, and with one or two different SIM cards in it to give you diversity, things like that. So it's something that I did do quite a bit of when I was at Live. I attended a few sessions on 5G. That's one thing I had to go spend quite a bit of time digging into. So it's going to take some time to go through that. Just a tip, I don't think anyone passed the CCDE ISP exam since the November change, or hardly a couple, so please wait before taking the exam for attempt number 1. So yeah, I do plan on, to answer both of these questions, I do plan on taking the SP lab exam, but that's down the road. It's not my first priority when it comes to certification. And now that I've recertified, it's given me a lot more time, and I definitely don't even think a year and a half back before I passed the written exam would have been enough to fully go through all the content on the SP track. I don't give myself enough credit for how much I actually do know about service provider, but at the same point in time, I don't think it's enough, and I felt like I was rushing. So now I've got plenty of time to go through it. So feeling pretty good about that. So that's these two. Does this mean you will be attempting the CCDE lab exam? I don't think it will be harder than your triple CCIE attempts for route switch. I am going to go after DE, which is one of the reasons why I did kind of the deep dive, if you will, on the Tech Support Thursday video that I did for Tech Support Thursday. I'm studying for the 3.1 exam, so that'll be sometime first quarter next year is my attempt. So I've got about 8-ish months before I can sit for the exam. I think that's more than enough time for me to go learn the areas that I need to go learn and dig into it. But it's not a race. It's 100% a marathon. I am going to be taking it one topic at a time. As a matter of fact, last night when I was working out in my basement, I have a 3702 access point that I plugged into a console connection on an old computer that I have in the basement, and I went ahead and gave it a PoE connection. So my goal right now is to go through the core technology list on the CCDE blueprint in the order, in reverse order. So I'm starting off with wireless. I'm going to go learn autonomous APs, then wireless controllers, and then understand how all that stuff comes into play, because really that's it would be beneficial to learn it anyway. So to get all that working, understand wireless in detail, and then do security, and then get into service provider, and then backtrack into IGPs and things like that. So I do have some goals for that, but I'm taking it one step at a time. I don't need to overwhelm myself or what have you, because what this gives me the ability to do now is in October of next year, I hit my 10 years, so I should get my 10-year plaque for CCIE, so that'll go behind me, and my plaque is slightly over that way, but that'll give me a second plaque. I do plan on going after the practical exam, so which I have to go to a Cisco location, which for me would be Richardson, Texas. I'd be taking the practical there, and I have a lot of material that I have to cover. I'm in no hurry to get there. I get there when I get there. So that's one of the things that I plan on doing. And then after I've done that, which is going to be preparation for service provider, I will then start digging into any of the areas of service provider that I don't feel comfortable with yet. And then it'll be digging into getting the SP lab knocked out. So that'll be that workbooks for all of this content will be part of that process, because I want to be able to take everything that I'm learning and studying and labbing and testing and understanding and all that type of stuff, put that into documentation that all of you can use, so that I can then record content around it. And it'll be a staged approach. Things will be coming out over a period of time, which is one of the reasons why I created the All Access Pass. So, and at a very low monetary rate. So, there's that. Any new barbecue creation? No, I've been off for the past 2 weeks, on vacation and at the Cisco Live, so I didn't really have a chance to do anything. I did make a brisket, but I've made a ton of briskets and I didn't really do anything with it, and it came out okay. It was, I think I overcooked it. It was a little dry, but it is what it is. Why did you say before that BGP conditional route advertisement is considered your toughest BGP feature? I have studied it lately, and I'm not seeing what you see in it difficulty-wise, and hence want to see your point of view. So what he's referring to with conditional route advertisement is the concept of the advertise map with the exist and non-exist maps. And essentially what always throws me through a loop, and it just means that I have to, it's one of those last few topics in BGP, same thing with like route dampening. That and DMZ link bandwidth. There's a handful of topics for BGP that are, and then the different variations of MED. There were 7, 8, 9 topics in BGP, and then add path. I just didn't spend as much time learning and labbing up as I probably should have when I first started diving into routing and switching and learning BGP. But one of the things that I did was I can get it to work, but I have to test it out first to make sure that my logic is correct. So it feels opposite to me. Like, for example, if the route's not there, the non-exist map would trigger, then causing you to advertise the route. Things like that. I don't have the logic memorized. So that's really where that comes into play. So again, it's just one of those things where when I have the time to dig into it, I'll spend some time going through conditional route advertisement and making sure that I have it fundamentally sound. So, good point. Is the BGP SOO site of origin used in ISP mainly for traffic engineering or to stop loops? Well, it's used on, at least in my experience, it is used on the provider edge to customer edge peering for BGP, assuming that you have the same location that has your customer edges have each have a connection to your LAN, and then your LAN connects to the customer edges and can access both customer edges at the exact same time. And then each CE has a BGP peering to the PEs, and both CEs are advertising the same routes to the PEs. The idea of site of origin is when the provider edge receives a route and it propagates to the other provider edge, that community value is triggered so that you don't re-advertise that route back to the customer. So will it stop a loop? Technically, yes, a routing loop. So, but that's one of those things where if you don't want to be learning the route back in, that's one way to stop it. Similar conceptually, to a certain extent, using route tags to control redistribution points when doing OSPF to EIGRP redistribution. Same thing there, when you have multiple points of redistribution. May you please talk in your next video about ISP to ISP communication, and between them is multiple ISPs, as in how traffic would go the multiple ISP rings, if I may say, and so you're welcome to go off on tangents. It's an interesting idea that it's all ISP rings with no core or backbone, if that makes any sense. I don't really know what you hard to answer your question without knowing more. What you want to, like, there's BGP peerings, obviously, and things like that. What specifically comes into play with that? There's a lot. There's a term in the service provider world, and I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, where providers will peer with each other and they don't charge each other for sending or receiving traffic. I can't. A settlement free, I think, is the term. I think that's what it might be. But essentially, that's one of the key things. And then you also have non-settlement free peering, where there is a charge on a per gigabyte amount of traffic, something like that. I don't know. There's a dedicated team that my ISP has that deals specifically with peering with other service providers, and I'd have to talk to them about what that looks like. But yeah, that's essentially that. So there are cores, but even in your avatar for, I don't know if this will let me pull you up. Oh, will. So if you take a look at this, I don't know if I can zoom in. So you have this topology right here, right? And essentially what you're seeing here is a traditional, what do you call it? Traditional core, right? So you have like what it looks like a collapsed core going to some edge routers, going off to some ISP or what have you. So what this basically, in the service provider world, you don't build networks this way. So you don't use a traditional campus network design in order to do that. So, oh, congrats on your 14 subscribers, by the way. So these are some things that you have to take in the back of your mind, that service provider design is different than campus design, which is different than data center design, which is different than cloud design. So that's one of the reasons why I'm taking the time to dive into the DE, because that's going to allow me to spend the time that I need to learn in order to be able to better explain those things. So just be patient with those stuff. I will be coming out with content around that, because it's definitely important to know the concept of core distribution access is a little bit different in the service provider world. You get core aggregation and then access, or edge, depending on how you want to look at it. So similarly, it can be built. However, the concept of layer 2 is completely removed. So it's all routed. It just depends on how you're connecting. So, for example, one of the things, and I'll go ahead and log in here. It'll be the this will be the enterprise workbook topology. So nothing you guys haven't seen. So just a quick little whiteboard session here, because I think it's important for you to understand where this comes from. When you're talking about connecting to a service provider, for example, you might have provider edge 1 here. This will be a router. Let's say this is an ASR 9K whatever version. Let's say it's a 9K4. So 4 line cards. You don't terminate directly on the router. What you actually do is there are multiple connections outbound in a ether bundle, so 10, 40, 100 gig connectivity, typically to a switch. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this is a Cat 9K, a big platform, like a 9504, something like that. Well, you're going to have line cards in each one of these. And what's going to happen is you're going to plug your customer circuits into here. All your fiber lines, they're all going to connect into here, like so. And that's going to be how you're going to connect into it. You're going to terminate on the switch, and then the router is going to have a bunch of sub-interfaces that are going to be configured on this ether bundle to do the routing for the customer. And then you're going to take /29s and /30s, and you're going to, the peering between you and the customer will be a /30, and then you might give them a /29 subnet that they can use internally, which will be basically just a static route that they point to the next hop IP address. So let's say this is the customer LAN that they connect into, this is their router, and then behind here is, this will be a CPE device. This could be something that the provider manages for the customer. It could be customer owned and they manage it. Doesn't matter. And then behind there, you're going to have a public block of traffic. This is where your /29 will come into play. There'll be, between here and here, there will be an eBGP peering. It doesn't have to be eBGP, but for the sake of argument, we'll say it is. It could be also a connected route that is advertised into BGP as well. And then you have a /29 that is allocated down here that the customer will use for on their firewall. So this is a firewall, and you have VPN connectivity going through, and then you have the provider backbone. So I'll put PBB, not to be confused with provider backbone bridging, but provider backbone. And then you'll have another PE over here. This will be PE2, but this guy here has connectivity over to, let's say, AT&T. Well, as far as you're aware, from your termination point of the internet, hitting the switch, hitting the provider edge router, and then going between here and here, and then going off to AT&T, you don't see any of this. All this right here is all hidden. You don't see any of that. And then when you get off to AT&T, this is just one big autonomous system number. Let's say 13989, making autonomous systems up, and then you get 7087, I think maybe, is an AT&T ASN. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't deal with that side of the house very often. But then you get a 12 net, because basically AT&T owns the 12/8. So that's essentially how that would look. So is it going to be like this? No, it's not going to look like that. It definitely won't be layer 2, that's for sure. Layer 2 networking is only going to be seen in the data center, the campus, and maybe a little bit in the cloud. But other than that, everything else is routed. Routing is king, by far, day in and day out. The only time you use layer 2 is in the campus or in the data center. You can do layer 2 over layer 3, MPLS layer 2 VPN, VXLAN, L2TPv3, OTV, so on and so forth. So those can be done. But hopefully that answers your question, provide you a little bit of clarity on how that type of stuff works, but that's essentially where that comes into play. So that is pretty much it for this video. I will be putting a link in the description to the All Access Pass on Patreon, and I will be continuing to record content for EIGRP, OSPF, BGP, multicast, MPLS, DMVPN, FlexVPN, and QoS and security as time goes on. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me. I'll catch all of you in the next video.